Chapter 11, The Calm Before. And I hope that Chapter 12 is called The Storm. I'll be sad otherwise. I inhale to the slow count of 10, keeping my breathing as quiet as possible as I listen to the other sounds in the room. The environmental control system, a strange creaking sound in one wall, people talking to each other down the corridor, and Caleb's soft breathing from right in front of me. There were other sounds as well, low, distracting, and many. But at least I'd learned to block the sounds of my own body out. My breathing, the sound of my heart, even the sound of blood rushing through my veins. Ew. When Caleb first started instructing me how to enhance my hearing, just that much could overwhelm me. Now I could focus my ability outside my body with little effort. There was a rustle of fabric, and I reached up to catch Caleb's hand before he touched my forehead.
Good work.
I opened my eyes and shot him a weary smile. Thanks.
Your ability to pinpoint the source of a given sound has gotten much better since even this morning. Not to mention your ability to ignore unimportant auditory input. I'm impressed.
I'm so tired.
Biokinesis is exhausting in unique ways. The amount of focus needed for some enhancements is draining.
I never realized how much focus you needed to do what you do. Just being able to keep your thoughts on what you're doing while also listening to everything around you or enhancing your vision to any significant degree is tough.
Well, you have an edge with those neural enhancements of yours.
If it's this tough with my enhancements, I can't imagine learning to do it without them.
Gaining new respect for me now.
I'd be gaining more respect for you if you weren't gloating about it.
Where's the fun in that?
Maybe you should enhance your vision better so you can find it. He flicked my forehead playfully before tossing me a water bottle.
You're handling it well. You're at least to a level I think is passable for now. I want you to be able to keep your eyes and ears open while we're at that auction.
I'll do my best. And if not, Ari has been helping me with shields as well.
I'm glad to see you're making progress with that. And Vaughn's mental shields.
Yeah, no more mind bombs, thank you. There had been a veritable marathon of training the last couple of days. With the big mission in Delphine around the corner, everyone was trying to bring me up to, as Caleb called it, a passable level. Though there was an argument to be made for the idea that nothing short of at least 6 months of intense training would get me to a passable state. But I didn't feel right about putting my foot down about it until the current crisis was over, since I was uniquely able to intervene in Relic situations. I really wish Magnus would do something about that.
Your improvement over the last few days has been impressive. I knew you'd start moving faster as soon as you got past the initial learning curve. And your personal hang-ups.
That sounds almost like a compliment, and almost like an insult.
It's not an insult, and you know it.
I'll be ready for the assignment this time. I promise. No more dramatic things. I made a vague gesture at my head, since all my dramatic psychic experiences these days were mind-based, instead of me tossing buildings on people. Though I still argue I didn't toss it anywhere.
We'll make sure of that to the best of our ability. No one is ever really ready, not completely. But this isn't your first assignment, so that helps.
I think I inhaled to the slow count of 10. Wait. Did we go back in time? Because I'm like, why the flash? And then she's just like very chill about it. Keeping my breathing as quiet as possible as I listen to the other sounds in the room. What just happened? The environmental control system, a strange creaking sound in one wall, people talking to each other down the corridor, and Caleb's soft breathing from right in front of me. There were other sounds, low, distracting, and many. It's like she went back as well, like she doesn't remember yet, she hasn't realized. But at least I'd managed to learn how to block the sounds of my own body out. My breathing, the sound of my heart, heck, the sound of my blood rushing through my veins. There was a rustle of fabric, and I reached up to catch Caleb's hand before he touched my forehead.
Good work.
I I opened my eyes and shot him a weary smile. Thanks. Yeah, okay, good. I'm glad you guys are both squinting about it now, like, wait. Didn't this just happen? Did I have a very detailed premonition, or...
No, you're right. That was... I bet Magnus is screwing around with the relics again.
That's not a bet I'm willing to take. I think that's the only explanation. Caleb got to his feet and offered me his hand. I pulled myself to standing.
We should get down to the lab just in case.
Just how I wanted to end training today. A few minutes ago, I wished he'd worked on it so I'm not the only one they rely on. But this is annoying. Wait. If we had a little loop of sorts, did I actually think that, or did it not happen? But if it didn't happen, why would I remember? Okay, no. Thinking about that seemed like it would give me a headache. Let's just move on. Timey-wimey stuff. We were halfway to the lab when we got the notification. It was a brief message explaining the situation. A relic had, as we suspected, activated during a test involving Magnus Ulrich. Okay, I gotta give Magnus at least a little bit of props for not just sitting around. He is actually, like, trying to help, even though he's causing problems. But, I mean, you gotta cause problems trying to figure things out. I was also being called down to the lab where Magnus was waiting. I knew it. It was the third time in 2 days. Hello, everyone. I've been thinking about Olsen for a bit, ever since the first Relic incident. I'm a little sus. I will admit that like 70% of my susness is because he's got a face. And I'm like, I haven't seen you in anything else before. And also because working in the lab, it sounds like he's got access to lots of relics. And I'm a little suspicious of the fact that he knew exactly which ones were part of the latest incidents. He was just like, oh yeah, the one that was involved with it. I mean, you could argue that he's a super nerd, which is possible. But I'm a little sus that he was like aware of those particular things. And he has access to relics here, so he might be able to replicate them. Anyway, I don't know if he's working with Brennan or if he's doing his own stuff, but that's, I'll posit my theory here and we'll see what happens going forward.
From what we understand, the loop only occurred within a specific radius. We're not yet sure what it was, but based on the reports, it seems to be a few hundred meters in all directions and only impacted about 10 minutes.
The problem is that we're about 3 minutes from looping again if we understand what's happening, which we think we do. It's going to do it again.
It's an assumption at this point, but based on the lighting sequence, which is repeating what it did a moment ago, we think it will continue forcing a 10-minute loop until it's shut down.
I'm glad to see you took my suggestion from before seriously, but this is a bit...
As much as I would love to listen to your beautiful voice lecture me, we have a limited amount of time to deactivate the relic before we all loop again.
Well, thank you, Magnus. Always a charmer.
Being trapped in a loop seems quite annoying, doesn't it, Morgan? It would be a pity if you had to walk all the way down to the lab again.
This is your fault to begin with. Why are you looking at me like that? I'll give it a try.
We've cleared the lab, reinforced the walls, and Ari will be with you to shield you and get you out if it begins to overload.
Fine. But only because having this conversation again would be irritating.
I'm pleased to see Caleb's cynicism is rubbing off on you.
I believe we're running out of time. It might be wise for the rest of you to evacuate the lab.
I moved closer to the relic as the others left, only shooting Caleb one look before he reluctantly followed them. There wasn't much he could do if he stayed anyway. And thanks to Magnus poking on the relics frequently the last couple of days, I'd gotten a little more practice at this. Okay. Wait, is he... I mean... That's probably not the main reason he's doing it, but it's like a good side benefit? Probably.
It would be best to begin. We are running out of time.
Right. I snapped to focus and took a deep breath before studying the relic and staring into the circuitry like I had the last time. Only a few seconds passed before I felt that familiar sensation of being drawn into it somehow. My mind filled with the image of those flashing symbols. This part was the same every time, allowing myself to be pulled into them. Once I was in, the experience varied. Sometimes I didn't do anything but pop in and try to leave right away. Sometimes it was like flipping a switch, an imaginary switch I couldn't see, and I flipped it with my mind. Once it was like I had screamed into a howling void, except there was no void and I hadn't screamed. Man, it's crazy that they have such differences. Almost nothing I was doing was purposeful. At most I could say I interacted with them, experienced something, and they self-destructed as if responding to an intruder. This time I was aware of the relic making that familiar humming sound in advance as it began to overload. Welp. I wrapped my shield around it to augment Ari's a split second before he teleported us away to a nearby corridor. We heard the muffled explosion from there. Good work, everybody.
Well done.
Thanks. It's much easier when someone teleports me away at the last minute.
We must do more work so you can learn to do it safely. That way you won't need my help going forward.
Around us, the researchers were buzzing with excitement as they headed back into the lab. Smoke was pouring out from the door into the hall, but it seemed like the combined shields from Ari and myself had minimized the damage. It's interesting because, like, Magnus interacts with it. It doesn't freak out right away. It like tries to do what its intended function is, even though we don't like understand why it does what it does. Like, you know, what I could see some benefits of a 10-minute loop for sure. So I'm kind of sad that Relic has exploded now. But like when Morgan goes in, it's just like automatically like abort, shut everything down, explode, which is interesting.
Magnus, what the hell are you doing? The last time you did this, we weren't able to contain the explosion and it destroyed a lab.
I was hoping to have a breakthrough with them before your mission. If I could decode them, Morgan could learn the technique from me. It seems it's not that easy. Though, at least she's getting practice in shutting them down.
I'm not doing anything in particular or figuring anything out from this. I'm still flailing at them with my mind until they break. Eventually, I will come up against one that doesn't just shut down at the sight of me.
Which is why practice is needed. Though you can understand the difficulties with it, I'm not trying to activate them.
And yet, this is the third time.
Like Morgan, I fear I can't explain to you why they're activated. For the most part, they don't engage with me at all. But every so often...
You're not doing it on purpose, right? Please tell me this isn't another...
I'm afraid not this time. I can't say I'm not pleased to learn your ability to interact with them is consistent thus far, though. Given the circumstances, I believe learning to decode these relics is important now more than ever. We didn't expect them to become a matter of planetary security, since they were rare in public spaces until now.
Poking around on them is dangerous.
Continuing on in ignorance about them is also dangerous.
I do agree with that.
Does the Council know about your little experiments down here?
Let's just say I haven't deemed it necessary to inform them.
Well, Morgan has other things to do, so I hope there's no more practicing with the relics on the schedule for today.
I guess I'll take a break for now.
Good.
We left the researchers to clean up the mess, which I'd have felt bad about if they all didn't seem excited to examine the lab and relic remnants. Magnus walked with us on the way back up.
How is the rest of your training going, Morgan?
It's going okay.
More than okay. Her progress the last couple of days has been incredible.
Incredible? High praise coming from our little Kale.
Shut it, Magnus.
I'm pleased to see you're proud of your student. It's heartwarming.
These two really just don't get along, do they? Well, Magnus insisted on provoking Caleb at every possible chance. That didn't help.
You'll be infiltrating the Delphine auction in just over 24 hours. You should take the rest of today off and rest. We need you and others in top form. especially you.
We were giving her the afternoon off anyway.
I'm glad to hear it. I'd hate if she was being overworked.
If you care about it, then stop making more work for her by playing around down in the labs.
In any case, I'll go take a shower, so if anyone needs me to blow anything else up, it'll have to wait. If you'll excuse me.
Caleb, Ari, there is something I need to discuss with the two of you. Now is as good a time as any.
I gave them a quick nod and left on my own. I'm leaving. I need to shower. And get myself all... I wonder if she's going to wear, like, the same dress that she wore in Case's route, or if she's going to get a new dress. I was almost disappointed when I walked into the living room after my shower and didn't find Caleb waiting for me there. Then I kicked myself because he wasn't supposed to be there, damn it! What's wrong with me? I flopped on the sofa and drew my knees up to my chest. With all the training, I was feeling more confident in my abilities, but I couldn't help but worry about the potential of mission failure. If we weren't able to at least learn who the relic supplier was, what would happen? Was it wise to throw me in the thick of things? Maybe I should insist on waiting on standby until they needed me. Then again, if something serious happened with the relic, there might not be time to get me to a place I could help. Still, the plan was to have Caleb and I waltz into the auction like we belonged there, while the rest of the guard waited nearby to storm the place. We didn't know who was on the invite list, but Magnus had a few guesses. The auction venue wasn't massive, but they expected it to have many of Delphine's most powerful and notorious leaders, all in one place. There was high potential for things to go south, even without relics being involved. I flopped back on the sofa with a long sigh. I only hoped we caught whoever was behind it and put a stop to it, for everyone's sake, and for my sanity. I was looking forward to this being over. I eventually found myself sitting in the lounge with a cup of tea as I read through another message from Mum. Thankfully, the family was doing well, and I had the freedom to explain more about my situation and, well, apologize properly. None of them were angry at me. Disappointed, yes, but I smiled to myself as I took a long sip of hot tea. Disappointed I dealt with it alone and didn't let them help me conceal it. Because they would have if that's what I wanted. We love a supportive family. I had only hinted at the whole kidnapping ordeal when I spoke with her because I figured she'd be at the headquarters demanding to speak with the council if she knew the truth. She was already asking when they could come visit, and Dad was looking into the requirements for moving to Braceil.
And I want to know more about this Caleb you keep talking about. I believe there's more to him than just being your teacher. If you have a new boyfriend, I really think I ought to be the first to know.
I smiled again. I need to know what Mom's thoughts are on Caleb. I had no idea where to begin when it came to Caleb and my relationship with him, but she had already picked up on the fact there was something there because, of course, she had. She also asked about school again and whether I'd be granted a degree, even if I couldn't continue. To be honest, I hadn't thought about it at all. As soon as Magnus reinstated my net access, I'd gotten my test scores, and a notice that I'd made Prime Tier. Morgan. Aw, I'd been a little sad when I saw that. But there was nothing to be done about that situation, and I didn't have time to think about it. Good job, girl. Man, it took us so many routes, but we finally found out her test scores. It wasn't like I needed a degree or certificate, but it would be nice to have some recognition of my work until this point. Yeah, absolutely. I'll have to look into it later. Do you mind if we join you? I knew it was gonna be you guys. I snapped out of it and looked up, surprised to see Birdie and Casey standing next to the table. Oh, sure. Sorry I didn't see you there.
You looked busy.
I was responding to a message from my mother. It's nothing that can't wait. The two of them sat, Birdie grinning at me as she did so. It's been a while, hasn't it? Yeah, like, last time I saw you, Birdie, a couple chapters ago, but both of you, it's been many routes. It has. I've been busy almost non-stop lately. That situation with the relics, huh? Yeah. We've seen some general reports on it, though we don't know all the details. It sounds stressful, though.
There's another mission coming up tomorrow, right? It was mentioned in the last status update.
Yeah, Queen's Guard is heading into Delphine for it. Are you okay? Of course I am. It's not my first assignment or anything. It seems really soon. Then again, you are a queen. That's a different level than the rest of us. I don't know about being on a different level or anything, but I'm needed there.
I saw the general briefing about your first mission too, the one in Asteri. Visiting a murder scene seemed intense for a first time out.
My first mission was just an escort assignment. A small team venturing a little bit into the waste for some environmental samples.
Mine was overseeing business negotiations on Syrah.
Asteri wasn't too bad. I mean, I spent the day they recruited me being shot at. Compared to that, Asteri was a cake run, as Caleb calls it.
What? I didn't hear about that part. Just the Cyburst part.
The getting shot at part is why the Cyburst happened. That sounds terrifying! Oh, it was. It definitely was. Then there was the part about being chased in the rain, dramatic high-speed car thing.
It seems like the report didn't do it justice. When I got recruited, it was just my parents filling out forms while I had no idea what was happening.
Same! Definitely no one shooting at me.
What are you three talking about? First assignments.
Casey gave Mara and Odette an easy smile, unlike Birdie, who was practically vibrating in her seat at the sight of 2 more guard members.
Sounds fun. Mind if we join in?
Of course not. Birdie's eyes had, adorably, gone wide as saucers as she made room for them. Mara, I could tell, was amused. It was cute how starstruck she was. I guess the guard members had quite a reputation among the junior agents.
First missions, eh? I don't even know if I remember mine. My experience with it is probably a bit different from everyone else's.
You were already an old pro by the time you joined Endgame. I don't remember my first assignment either, though. Feels like a million years ago already. I can tell you my third assignment didn't involve going undercover into the heart of Delphine, though. That's for sure.
Delphine's a hellhole, but I've been on worse assignments to other places. Syrah isn't exactly a playground.
I had noticed her accent before. She was from Delphine, so I suppose she would know better than anyone what Delphine was like. Still. Don't know if this actually matters. I'm trying to remember if she mentioned growing up in Delphine or not before. I mean, I don't want to pry. Like, if she wants to share that, that's fine, but I don't know if I actually want to dive into her history. I'll just say Delphine didn't seem so bad. Delphine didn't seem so bad when I was there. I mean, I know it is. But it was a lot like any other city. Besides, it sounds cynical to say it, but it's not like the Triad is perfect. They try hard to hide it, but there are problems on this side, too. Just because they're not as out in the open doesn't make it better than Delphine.
That's true. Though I'm surprised to hear you say it, having grown up in New Albion.
Okay, I'm glad I picked that choice.
In Delphine, everything is out in the open, and a lot of times you get involved in bigger groups just to keep yourself afloat. Normal citizens live day to day trying to stay out of it all, but if you're in the wrong places, you get pulled into the underworld whether you like it or not. Here, it's not as if that doesn't happen. It's just less. It's hidden better, too.
I won't say it wasn't hard to admit that it's not perfect over here, but your eyes open up once you're pulled outside the normal order of things. You realize there's a lot of suffering going on. Whether it's in the open or in secret, it's still suffering. That's what we're here for, though. To help with that where we can. I know. I just get frustrated. Delphine has such a bad reputation, but it seems kind of unfair. I'm sure the people who live there are trying to survive like everywhere else.
That's the truth. And it's not easy, but that goes for everywhere.
I guess our going over there for this assignment will help in its own way. It's in everyone's best interest to get relics off the street, but...
If the epicenter is in Delphine, one assumes they'll feel the benefit of our help the most. Though I'm sure that only goes for the people who aren't involved in it. The ones who are... well, they should just hope we don't find them in the midst of shutting this thing down.
Good luck to them. They'll need it.
We continued to chat for a while, but the others eventually all had things to do. Training sessions, assignments, reports to work on. I was left alone again, ostensibly having an afternoon off to rest. After everyone else left, it occurred to me that I didn't know what to do with myself on days off. Even in New Albion, if I had a day off from school, I usually spent it doing errands or studying. It wasn't surprising that I found myself curled up reading about the Delphine underworld instead of resting. There were some dark things going on in Delphine, but I guess it had always been like that. Delphine was never supposed to exist, and it wouldn't if not for the AI, if not for King's intervention. I suppose that's why it was so important to shut down this relic auction. We couldn't let those things get into the hands of the types of people who would be there. So while the ultimate goal was to learn who the supplier was and shut down the entire operation, the immediate goal of tomorrow's mission was to shut down the auction and seize all the items being sold. That was the most important thing for now, especially getting our hands on the item that could duplicate other relics. Though it would be a problem if that one was also a replica. What a frustrating situation.
You look like you're thinking about something heavy.
Done with work for the day.
Seems like it.
He joined me on the sofa, stretching out his legs. I was sure he was tired after a long day of meetings. They could be mentally draining.
Did you stay in here reading the entire day?
Well, just a few hours.
Had dinner yet?
Not yet. I was going to have dinner in my flat tonight. Want to join me?
Going to make me some typical college student fare?
Not that you would even know what that is, but no, I'm a decent cook, thank you very much.
I'll look forward to sampling your very decent cuisine then.
I'll try not to burn it. Just for you. He stood and offered his hand. How were the meetings?
Boring as usual.
Anything I should know about?
Not really. We were getting some updates about some other situations right now. There's never just one thing.
I can see how that would be annoying. I guess it can feel like there's only one thing going on when you get wrapped up in a case like this one.
It can feel that way, but it's never that easy.
So what else is going on in the world these days?
Oh, the usual. Sierra is getting ready to revolt over regulations and mining quotas. Some morons tried to trespass into the wastes, and their transport got taken out by a colony of sand lampreys. We had to go drag the survivors out.
Go on. Large, jawless flying mammals that live in colonies near the Infinity Sea. Despite the name, mostly given for their leech-like mouths filled with circular rows of small sharp teeth, they are mammals. They are aggressive and strong predators that attack in high numbers that are known to take down flying transport vessels that get too close to their habitats. Their thick, leathery wings can reach spans of 3 to 4 meters and, like many of the creatures on Arcalis, have bioluminescent flecks dotting the back. Early colonists dubbed them the stuff of nightmares and had several deadly run-ins with them before carefully marking off their known habitats and avoiding them at all costs. Fortunately, they don't venture far from their colonies most of the time. They feed on larger prey, including a variety of medium to large mammals that dwell in the wastes. Because they attack in such large numbers, there are few other animals that can withstand their attacks, and they are considered the top land predator of the Twilight Wastes. I may have read about those before, it sounds familiar.
A group of renegades from Delphine crossed the sea and attacked one of the northern battery stations. Some Nomos researchers got dragged into the fighting, so that almost became an international incident. And an expedition to Dion's western expanse has gone missing, and they have asked us to look into it.
The notorious western expanse. Not that a missing expedition sounds fun, but that's an assignment I wouldn't mind being on.
Sometimes I wonder about you.
What's that supposed to mean?
You know how dangerous that place is. Once you get outside the settlements, Dione has one of the most hostile environments in the system. Do you know what those jungles are like?
Well, I've read about them. I'm sure it's different experiencing them.
Imagining you hacking your way through them to get to some lost ruins or something. I just can't picture it.
I think I'd be excellent at hacking my way to lost ruins. Besides, I can't picture you dancing the night away in some club either. But everyone has surprising sides to them, don't they?
Going out is how I relax, thank you very much. Don't you have things you do to get your mind off stuff?
I don't know. When I was studying a lot, I just read or spent time with my family. I didn't go out.
You didn't have any hobbies.
So dancing is your hobby?
I wouldn't call it a hobby. Volitant is a hobby, I guess. I like music, though. I play a couple of instruments.
Go on. Really? A couple? That's a surprise.
I dabble. I wouldn't say I'm a pro at either of them, but I'll show you sometime if you want. And I'm still going to teach you to play Volitant. We need to find you some hobbies that don't involve cramming more information into that already full brain of yours.
Sounds terrifying.
There's really nothing at all.
Well, I went there for a rock climbing workshop once. That was fun.
Rock climbing. You can do that in the city, right? There's probably a place here in Brazil. I can look into it.
It's not the same. At all. I tried it in New Albion, and I guess it was fun in a way, but it's not the same as the real thing. The dome I visited for my workshop straddles several natural rock faces. It's perfect for real outdoor rock climbing. I really wanted the experience.
Why?
I just thought it might be useful to know the basics.
What? They haven't come up with better ways to access hard-to-reach digs and excavations?
Of course they have, but you know how the storms on Dione can be with electrical equipment. I wanted to make sure I was prepared for anything. I've taken a lot of extracurricular classes on various subjects. It might surprise you, some of what I've studied.
An overachiever to the core.
You never know when it might come in handy.
Sure. It's not like you can just teleport places now.
Ari hasn't taught me that skill yet.
You'll get there.
Anyway, at the time I took the workshop, teleporting wasn't even on the table as an option. But it was fun. I wouldn't mind going back sometime. And I guess it wouldn't be bad to try a place here in Brazil, even if it's not the same.
Real outdoor rock climbing sounds fun. I should try it sometime.
We should go together then, unless you wanted to go without me.
No. I want to go with you, obviously.
How do holidays even work here? I feel really out of the loop. No one even explained that to me.
We get leave like any normal job would. If it's more than a weekend trip, you just have to reserve some time, that's all.
Sometimes it's disappointing how the mystique of this place gets dispelled once you're inside it.
Mystique? Seriously?
Sure. You think anyone wants to imagine Esper's doing something as mundane as reserving time off for holiday? They much prefer imagining everyone perpetually saving the world.
This would be some kind of hell planet if it was in need of saving that much.
Based on my initial weeks here, I can't say it doesn't feel like that.
It's not always like this. I mean, there's always something going on, but it's not always this dire.
I'll believe it when I see it. Speaking of which...
No. I told you earlier I don't want to talk work tonight. I don't want to think about work. I don't want you to think about work.
Fine.
Magnus believes he may have located a probable base of operations for whoever is distributing these relics. Though it could just be the Delphine government setting up a new facility, but there's a lot of activity at some Arraean structure out in the middle of the ice. Getting a team there will be hard, but we'll figure it out. And no, you're not going to be on the recovery team. Maybe one of the cleanup crews.
Aww.
I would like to see your face if you get to go, though. I can only imagine how it would light up getting to go poke around in some dangerous place full of alien tech that wants to kill you.
I can do without the alien tech, but ruins? Yeah.
Some of the ruins are alien tech. They aren't just old buildings.
Oh? This feels like a story I need to hear.
No, not tonight. I should go and let you rest.
He leaned and pressed a kiss to my forehead as he slid his arms around my waist and pulled me in for a quick hug.
Tomorrow we'll be busy. I don't want to keep you up.
You act as if I'll miraculously be able to sleep just because you leave.
At the very least, try. Tomorrow morning will be filled with briefings, and then we'll be heading to Delphine.
You could always stay the night. Caleb visibly hesitated at that suggestion. You don't want to?
I'm not sure you really want me to.
I wouldn't offer if I didn't. He pulled me close again, burying his face against the side of my head.
I just want to make sure you want what I want.
Do you think I don't know what inviting you to stay the night means?
No, that isn't it.
Aw. Poor boy, he's like trying to be so gentle with her. I love it. Okay, it's time to be confident in this moment. Take it, girl. Prove to him that this is what you want. There was a lot I could say in response to that. A lot that maybe we needed to say. But there was something in his words, a catch in his voice, that made me think it wasn't me he was worried about. That maybe he was trying to reassure himself instead. That maybe he was afraid of getting in too deep, too fast, and regretting it. I caught his face between my hands and leaned up, pressing my mouth to his. He saw it coming, of course, and caught me against him, holding me tight.
Okay, we might be heading towards fun time, so buckle in, everybody.
His mouth opened, tongue flicking lightly against mine before he pulled me closer, clinging as if he was afraid I would vanish from his grasp. We separated breathlessly a few seconds later. I still held on as I looked up at him. I want you to stay, if that's what you want. And if it's not, I won't be upset if you go. He let out a quiet laugh as he rested his head against mine.
I was supposed to be the one reassuring you.
I'm feeling quite confident about what I want right now.
So am I.
We kissed again, lips meeting in a heated furore, punctuated only by a soft gasp as his warm hand slipped under the back edge of my shirt, tracing the line of my spine. He shifted position to face me better, still kissing me fiercely, hungrily. A little murmur escaped him when my hands found their way to his chest, sliding down the firm muscles. They finally settled at his waist. With Caleb's insistent weight pushing against me, I soon found myself falling back against the pillows, his body sliding alongside mine as we somehow fit ourselves lengthways on the sofa. Very impressive. One of Caleb's hands dropped to my hip, smoothing a path to the back of my thigh before pulling my leg around him so he could settle more comfortably against me. The heat of his hips pressing into mine sent shivers racing through my body, lighting every nerve ending on fire. There was a sort of pent-up energy as we kissed, like the tension that had been building was roiling just below the surface, ready to snap. I couldn't help but feel he was still holding back. He pulled away and looked down at me, his face darkened against the lights overhead. His eyes were half closed, lips parted as his heated breath swashed over me. The look on his face sent shivers to the pit of my stomach. It was both intense, strangely hesitant, yearning. I'd never seen him look like that. Reaching up, I touched his cheek, letting my fingertips glide along his jaw. He was so handsome. Beautiful dark eyes, full lips, well-defined jawline. My thoughts flitted back to that day on the street, and I couldn't believe where we were now. How far we had come and where things had brought us. A soft smile came to my lips. It was echoed on Caleb's face as a corner of his mouth twitched up in response.
What are you smiling about?
He asked it as he lowered his head to drop a kiss on the side of my neck. I closed my eyes, biting my lip. My hands found their way to his hair. Life is strange. That's a video game series.
You're thinking those kinds of thoughts now.
I gasped when he nipped the side of my neck, fingers tightening in his hair. One of his hands made its way up the side of my abdomen before stopping, then moving back down to nudge the lower edge of my shirt out of the way first.
It looks like I'll have to try harder.
As his mouth traveled lower, I tipped my head back to let out a breathless gasp, losing myself to the sensation of his lips, tongue, and teeth. Of course, teeth. In the foggy part of my mind, I was hoping he remembered I would not be wearing my high-necked uniform the next day. Ahem. I doubted he did. Beneath my shirt, Caleb's callous fingers were running in heated circles over the sensitive skin, tugging, teasing, while he sucked lightly at the hollow of my throat. I bit my lip hard to hold back the cry I knew he was trying to elicit. Okay, she's gone. She's out. It's time. Time's happening. Caleb pulled away from me only long enough to yank my shirt over my head and toss it away to somewhere. I reached for him again, and our lips collided for another fiery kiss. One of his hands slid its way from the center of my back to just under my rear end. I should have expected the squeeze, but jumped anyway when his hand tightened around me. His low laugh sounded in my ears, and I pulled back to glare at him.
You have no idea how long I've been wanting to do that.
You are terrible. He pulled me close again, dragging my hips closer. And I found I couldn't complain anymore, if only because he'd covered my mouth with his to mute any more complaints anyway. My hands immediately found their way under his shirt for revenge, moving over the hard muscles up his chest. Turnabout was fair play, after all. He rocked his hips against mine again as my fingertips traced back down the smooth curves of his abdomen, dipping just below his waistband and over his lower stomach. I gasped against his mouth, a breathy half-moan that Caleb echoed when I moved my lips to the underside of his jaw, down his throat, then back up. One of his hands circled to the back of my head. When my teeth found his earlobe, tugging at it playfully, he finally snapped. The world shifted as he pushed me back, breathing heavily. The turbulent emotions flashing across his face sent a drop of heat straight to my core. He was struggling to control himself, and I found myself wanting to see that control slip even more. He jerked his shirt up, pulling it over his head and tossing it away, to join mine wherever it was, I assumed. He took both my hands, pressing them to his tawny chest and pushing them slowly down his torso. The languid roll of his hips sending fire straight to my core as my hands pressed against his growing erection. Then he lowered himself to me again, pressing his bare chest to mine. Beneath the renewed assault of his lips against my neck, collarbone, my chest, and abdomen, I was helpless to do anything but clutch his hair and give in to the sensations. Part of me wanted to suggest we relocate. Most of me didn't care. I just wanted him. All of him. He kissed the space above my heart, tongue flicking against the skin as he moved lower still. He traced a heated line to my navel. His hands explored everywhere, trailing fire behind them as they roved over my exposed skin. Goosebumps rose in their wake, and I finally let out a choked, desperate cry. When he lifted his head again, his expression was so different from the Caleb I knew. Somehow soft. There was tenderness that I didn't expect to see. My stomach fluttered in anticipation when his hands came to rest on the fastenings of my waistband. Impatient, I reached to help him, but he caught my hands and lifted them over my head, pinning them in place as he kissed me again.
Maybe we should move first.
His voice was a soft whisper against my lips. I suppose the sofa isn't terribly comfortable.
I'd rather have a little more room.
There was a hint of a smile in his voice and teasing gleam in his eyes. I bit the corner of my lip again, both amused and very interested to find out what he meant by that. Caleb pulled me to my feet, his eyes slowly moving down my bare torso. His lips curved upward as if he was pleased by what he saw. Okay, I gotta say, I'm low-key glad they moved it to the bedroom because the entire time they were on the sofa, I'm like, but that's where we were with Ari. I've been thinking about Ari the entire time they've been making out on the sofa, like, this is awkward. I feel much better about them being in the bedroom. But the smirk vanished to be replaced by intense determination. He led me to the bedroom, keeping one hand looped around my wrist. Dang, man, how big's your hand? I managed to pull myself away from him just as we reached the bed, wrapping my arms around his waist and pressing a kiss to the center of his back as I let my fingertips slide below the waist of his pants again. If he was going to tease me, I would do the same. He tensed and sucked his breath in, letting it out in a shaky groan at that exploratory caress before he turned in my arms. Woo! That's another great CG! Big fan. And before I could react, he was pinning me to the mattress. We shared a long look before I reached up to pull him in for a kiss. My fingers slid through his hair as he let out a trembling groan against my lips and finally gave in. He leaned down, pressing his entire body against mine again. Beyond that moment, things blurred from one passion-filled moment to the next. For the first time in a while, everything else faded. It left me amazed that this man I'd so disliked had become such a source of comfort, and such tender, blissful feelings. Ah. I also learned why he wanted more room, and was repeatedly awed by his creative use of the space my bed provided. Okay. I had thought that it had been a long time for me, but it had really never been like it was with him. The way he knew exactly how to have me gripping the sheets, pleading with him. The way he held me tight, whispering his need into my ears. There were moments so intense I thought we'd both break. And in the middle of every one of them, I wanted it to never end. Oh, she's back! When we were finally lying together, breathless and exhausted, Caleb wrapped me into a tight embrace and held me for a long time, his face buried against the back of my neck. I was almost annoyingly tired by that point, but I suppose it meant I wouldn't have trouble sleeping. I smiled to myself as I covered his hands, not at all disliking the way it felt being tucked against him this way. I could feel his heartbeat against my back, and the soft sound of his breath was making me drowsy. I wondered if he was already asleep.
Morgan.
No answer came. I twisted around until I could see him. His eyes were shut, lips parted slightly as a frown crossed his face. Good grief. Frowning in his sleep, while saying my name no less. So on brand. I wondered what I was doing to annoy him in his dream. I snuggled closer against him, shutting my eyes and falling asleep to the sound of his breathing.